Good morning, everyone. My name is Esther, and I'll be talking about the High Cotton Project. The High Cotton Project is an attempt by the Link Ministries to resolve the issue of homelessness in the city of Lubbock. A quick study on homelessness done by the Texas Homeless Network in the year 2012 shows that the major cause of homelessness in Lubbock is unemployment, and 74% of the homeless are not originally from Lubbock. And also information gathered from the field trip to the bridge in Dallas also shows that other causes of homelessness include dispute in the home, natural disasters, and eviction from apartments. The High Cotton Project is located along Avenue A and the 13th Street. There are two existing buildings on site. We have a kitchen/staff office, which also provides for the shower and the laundry. And the second building is the Cotton Gin building, which serves as a social space. And that's the building that's going to be remodeled for the High Cotton Center. Presently, guests live in tents. And my major goal for this project is to provide shelter, safety, nutrition, comfort, and personal health. In response to my goal, in my plan, I have a distinct separation between the level 1 guest and the level 2 guest. Each side has its facilities where in level 1 they have a dining, and at night the dining is also the sleeping area. And on the level 1 side, I have a mini clinic for minor health issues like headaches or cuts or injuries, just minor injuries. And then on the level 2 side, I also have a dining space, and that's where the kitchen is located, but then it serves for both sides. On the first floor plan, I have the main clinic, and then I also have the women and children, but the women and children are visually separated from the rest of the community because of some cases of pedophiles. And they're pretty comfortable. They have a personal veranda that they could use as their social space instead of going out there and being seen in public. In my plan, I also have a sculptural wall that separates the level 1 guest and the level 2 guest. And the reason I have this is not just to bring in art into my project, but it's also to serve as a monument of hope for the level 1's guests, because in the sculptural wall I have spaces so they kind of get a glimpse of what's going on the other side, and hopefully they want to be part of what's going on the other side. And in terms of thermal comfort, I have my building running from east to west, and then I have clerestories and skylights for daylighting and natural ventilation. In terms of social space, each level has its own courtyard for socializing and relaxing. In terms of water efficiency, I'm going to be using the gray water system, where water will be collected from the laundry, the showers, and the kitchen sinks, and it will be stored in tanks. And I have tanks located at strategic locations where they're not too far from the bathrooms and the laundry. Finally, I see my project expanding in the future. I see the project having a phase 2 where the spaces become more personal, and like the shared spaces just include like common areas like the living room and the courtyards, while phase 3, I see it being a home where you can call it your home, and everything becomes more personal and more permanent. Okay. Here, the first one is the first rendering is showing the entrance, a perspective view showing the entrance of level 1 and level 2 guests. There is an existing entrance already, but I decided to make my entrances. I wanted each level to come in from different sides. So from the onset, there is already a demarcation, and you don't have people spilling over to the other side. And this rendering is a section perspective of my building, showing the sculptural wall. And the sculptural wall, it lights up at night. And basically, this shows the mini clinic and the clinic right upstairs, and the level 1 dining, which also can be transformed to the sleeping area. And then it shows the security post before you get into the building for each level. And that's it. This rendering shows my perspective courtyard for my level 1 guest. Like I said, it's going to be used for socializing and relaxing. Okay, so in my site plan, I have roads and walk paths linked from the main entrance to the building, where at this side of the building, I have where emergency vehicles could pass through, and right here at the porch, which is existing already, where people relax, I left it that way. So, I mean, since people are already used to relaxing there, they might as well just keep doing that. Here I have emergency staircases, and I have a parking lot for the guests. This is a parking lot for the guests, and this is for the staff. And my site circulation kind of brings together everyone. Like everyone brings the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 together, so everyone has access to each side of to any area of the side, and except for the level 1 guests, they're the ones that separated from everyone else since they just come in and out. The sun diagrams just show how the building is shaded at different times of the year. Here I have the summertime, springtime, winter, and fall and winter. And with the way my building is orientated along the east and west side, I have more windows on the south side for more daylighting and more ventilation. And then also I also have a lot of trees on site to help out with the blocking of the wind.
My name is Garrett Ferguson, and this is my proposal for the High Cotton adaptive use project for the cotton gin that is existing on site. Like Dr. Loudon was just talking about, I propose to save at least part of the building for the reason that it really has a lot of ties to the high cotton idea and the idea of growing and progression. And that since there's so many references of that in the name, I think that it's a really, one has a lot of connections to what you're trying to focus on there at the High Cotton Project. What I did was, with the existing structure, I left most of the roof structure on the roof planes, but not any of the skin, the horizontal or the vertical skin, I actually removed. And I did that for a few different reasons. One, I think that viably it would take a lot of maintenance and repair and probably replacement to viably use that. Because there's a lot of existing holes from things that they'd used in other projects when it was a working cotton gin. Two, aesthetically, I didn't like it at all. I really did consider taking off the roof structure as well and just leaving the existing frame around it as sort of a structural element, like a sculptural element. But I thought that if I were to leave this roof structure on, and let's see, I'm trying to figure out the best place to see it. You can see it on all these renderings, but you can see it here as well. If I were to leave that, one, it would act as a shading structure that would shade the building actually incredibly well during the summer, and then still allow, so this is, well, it would still allow sunlight into the winter. I decided to add some louvers, and I'll get into that on a portion of it. But so this is, you can see what I've done best, I think, in this section, understand the idea of it at the very least. So this is the existing frame right there. And then my proposal was to add a building, a couple feet inset, basically, everywhere from that existing frame. So the roof and everything would be just a little bit inset of that. So nothing's touching the existing frame in any way whatsoever. And it would require a few, I just forgot the name, a few portal frames, thank you, Amanda. A few portal frames that would allow access, like so we would add just a few changes to the structure there to allow access and entry, and vice versa. So, but other than that, it would maintain most of it. The structure wouldn't be altered in any way. I did suggest painting it, just for one, focusing on the structure that's there, and two, adding some additional aesthetics. So the shading that would provide by insulating the building just slightly, it would shade the entire building on the south side specifically, but it would shade the entire building all but like an inch or two of the bottom of the first floor would be the only thing during the summer solstice that would receive any direct sunlight. The winter, however, would receive, I think it was about 20 feet that it would actually be able to penetrate into both floors, which is optimal, which is great. And then I added a skylight back here that would allow some extra light into this. The light would be able to bounce down into there, and it wouldn't give full lighting, but it would definitely offset any need that you needed for additional lighting, at the very least. And that was done with just using the existing roof structure there to shade the building. So. I did decide to add some louvers on this large roof plane right here, and only that one right there. I considered adding it on these other portions of the south-facing roof portions, but thought that I don't know. Because there's not skylights up in that area, there won't really be any need for sunlight up there at all. And two, that would allow for more rainwater harvesting needs. I would lose basically all of my rainwater harvesting capabilities on top of these louvers. But they were designed as well to allow the sunlight in both times. And you can see what they could do. This is what it would be in the winter when the sun's lower, where the sun's actually penetrated and it's got like a slatted look, but the sun's definitely penetrating deep into the building. And then this is the summer rendering of the exact same image, just sun difference, where the sun is, you can see the shadows pretty strongly because it's so much of a harsh light at that point, where it's not touching the building almost at all. Right, I'm gonna switch over here. So let me walk you through the building a little bit real quick. So. Maybe I should walk through the site. So you'd come over here, anybody would come in here through a gate that would have a security point, whether you were driving or walking in. And that would be, to go through security and maintain their safety as well as just everybody's safety. Anybody participating in any staff and everybody would go through that. They would go over here. This parking is really intended for staff, and if needed, participants that have cars, which I think you said were only 2 or 3, could park there, or they could park over closer. We could add some parking over near the rest of the existing tents. And then a separate parking lot would be added for volunteers and things like that were working in the soup kitchen or anything of that nature. So you'd walk in. Phase 1 participants would go back here over where the courtyard would be back on the north side of the building, and then phase 2 would come over towards the south side of the building. So let me walk you through phase 1 first. So phase 1 actually has, instead of the courtyard that was originally planned on the north side of the building, I proposed, because I think we have large amounts of space in this building, my proposal was that the courtyard would actually be moved to the second floor of the cotton gin and add a floor in there, right, add a second floor. And then to leave that open air was my idea. That would, one, I don't think that would have any really additional costs of any kind, because you wouldn't have any extra walls or anything like that. You basically just have some railings, which I don't think would break any budget. But that would allow them to have some shade and a little bit of wind breaks, because I've got some trees and things that are blocking that area, so that they've got a little bit of shelter rather than just being completely open air exposed in the courtyard outside, just not like they would be on the street. I think that would provide some shelter, but it would still be the courtyard idea without, well, providing that to them in a small space. So that would be up on the second floor, and they would have their own restrooms and things up there. And then their dining facilities is on the first floor in the southeast corner, right there with their own restrooms. Any elevator access, there's only one elevator in the building, and I considered adding more, but didn't think that it would be necessary of any kind because of cost, frequently. But there would be access to get to that if they needed to use that elevator somehow. Phase 2 would have a dining facility on the southwest corner, closer to the southwest corner, and the medical and social services would be over on the south end. As I realized the need for that definitely I hadn't seen before we toured the bridge in Dallas. A short stay facility would be in the south corner, or the south end of the second story, and then the middle parts would be the ones that would separate these, as we were talking a lot about separation for safety and things. So the middle portion of this plan is separates the two dining facilities by kitchen and offices, and then the top one would be used to separate it with a library and like a learning space, computer lab, multi-purpose room, things like that, that would have controlled access when there's staff present and things like that. But that way they could still get the resources that they need. I went with CMUs because they have a great thermal mass, which I think is really appropriate for this area, and does a really good job in absorbing that energy, and then appropriately releasing it throughout the year as needed. And then I chose hopper windows that all open up from the top and still allow some security and allow natural ventilation to go through in that element. And I think that's my presentation.
My name is Joshua Poppy, and I want to thank y'all for all coming out today and taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us. Starting with at the beginning of the semester, we took a trip to the bridge in Dallas, and a lot of the things that we saw there greatly impacted my way of thinking, and I tried to implement some of those things into my design. Before going to the bridge, I had a lot of preconceived ideas that I thought was best solution, but later found that they weren't exactly correct. To start with, I'll walk you through my site plan. I wanted to provide the three phases that Les has discussed several times with us before, and to kind of create a circle, a flow for the complex. Phase 1, Prospects Court would be in the northeast quadrant here, and would be served through the proposed gin renovation. Phase 2, which is currently known as Tent City, would stay in its existing location, possibly be altered and shuffled a little bit. And then Phase 3 would be to the west, and Phase 3 would be a small complex of buildings there. For my site plan here, the first floor here, the main entrance and lobby is here with a reception desk. The building is split to serve Phase 1 and Phase 2 separately. Phase 2 being in the courtyard would have access to the dining area on the western side. This would also serve as a evening and night shelter. So after 7 p.m., when dinner was done, the tables would roll back, and this could be used as a sleeping quarter for Phase 1. Phase 1 would also have access to a clinic in this location, and that's really the basics that would serve them. Phase 2, which is located in the Tent City, would have access to computer lab, classrooms, as well as a few office spaces that were provided that could hold different services if they become provided workforce commission or something like that. On the second floor, I wanted to go ahead and put it in place mostly for future expansion. In a project like this, we all have great ideas of what is going to be needed now, but after a couple of years of operation, that'll probably change. And so there was a couple of things, such as a library and additional classroom spaces that I wanted to provide on that second floor, but it would also be a great space for additional offices or something like that in the future. Talking about a couple of different classrooms, a couple of different layouts that they might be. Conference rooms with good daylighting, enough room for probably 25 people to come sit around tables. It'd be a good place for discussion groups, job training, stuff like that. The dining facility displayed here, it's large, open volume, the full two floors. Also, when the doors are opened on the south side, good ventilation that would go up and out. And then the library on the north side is a rather small space, but it has a lot of cubicles, places for people to work on building resumes or studying or just meditating at that time. A couple of things that I really wanted to address was one, as I said before, the room for growth and the maximizing of space. And I believe that with this layout, it does provide the maximum amount of space with very limited corridors, and allows most of the rooms and services to be on an exterior wall, providing that natural lighting that really was stressed upon us at the bridge. I think one of the main things that they talked to us about was the importance of natural lighting on the emotions of people in a place like this, and having that connection outside, not to be confined. They just really stressed that was important in the rehabilitation process. So I tried to implement that as much as possible. Another thing that we focused on in the class was the attempt to become net zero with our energy use. And I believe that is achievable by three things. The first is the efficiency of the building design itself. You know, the current building is east-west in its orientation, which is good and right on line with how it should be. The implementation of good insulation, you know, for those walls, as it is currently a metal building, to provide a insulation barrier. I proposed the closed cell foam insulation on that. It is not the most cost efficient up front, but it is the best in my opinion long term. And then the third is energy production, and there's a few ways to do that. Wind turbines is obviously one option, and I think that in Lubbock, it seems that is probably a good option with the wind, you know, studies at Texas Tech, as well as the you know, just the whole region as a whole does that. Photovoltaic panels is another option. Les, I know that y'all are using photovoltaics currently in the tents. So that would also be an option to place them on the roof lines or something if y'all chose to go that route. But I would recommend the wind turbines, though they're fairly expensive. There's a lot of grants out there currently to reduce that cost. And then rainwater harvesting. I've placed cisterns around the building in strategic locations. If Lubbock ever does get a good rain, we have a great opportunity to collect that. And I think on this footprint, in a single rain, you know, 2,000 to 3,000 gallons is very easily achieved, and that could be used for irrigation, flushing of toilets, several different things. Sure. So in my section, what I really wanted to show was the difference in the two sides of my building. With the west side having the second floor in place, having the two volumes versus the whole volume in the dining facility. I think that the dining room, having the taller ceiling, is a good space for you know, just dining facilities, social events, and stuff like that could be held here. A great opportunity. Whereas, you know, this is of maximum efficiency with the two floors there. That's really all I was trying to show with that. So, with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Good morning. I'm very glad y'all were able to come and join us and listen to the same project several times. But my name is Amanda King, and this is my interpretation for more of a master plan for High Cotton with Link Ministries. I'd like to start in just explaining the master plan and site layout. I think it'll fully explain where everything goes from there. Can you see up here? Okay. One of the things that really stood out whenever we took our visit down to Dallas was security. And the way that they explained it to us was, if you feel comfortable, everyone else feels comfortable. And so by having the security in place, it just eliminated a lot of different issues that were arising prior to having the security. So through that, I started arranging the layout with my entries. So each part and each phase of the campus has its own designated entry. Here at the top north, this is the Prospect Courtyard entry that has, each one of these has a more of a protected entry, so that as you're coming in, you're there with your security. As you're coming in, you can be checked and be signed off and everything else as you come, as you come in. So each one of these entries has one. The level 1 is here. Then phase 2, which is going into your tent city as well as the transitional housing, is closer to where the main entry is at currently. It's just set off of the corner so that you can get a full drive. Then as you come down, you'll see another section, which is currently where the existing kitchen facility is. This is fenced off into its own campus for women and children only. And I'll break down into that in just a moment. Then the 4th entry is here, which is for staff and guests and emergency vehicles. It's a little bit of a larger entrance for vehicles to come through, as well as it's off of a gated parking lot for staff, administrative, visitors, and those few guests who do have vehicles so that they have a protected area. Then, whenever you come in through here, I've established more of a community courtyard as a welcome center that sets up more of the community feeling that is starting to arise up here. Let me set this back in. There we go. And that just helps everybody start to feel more at ease when you walk in. You're not walking into an institutionalized area, you're walking into essentially people's homes and a transitional period to start moving in to their own lifestyle. So that is where each one of these next phases that I'm about to talk about are located. So the first thing I want to talk about is in the Women's and Children's campus. And currently there is that building there that houses the kitchen and the laundry and the shower facilities. And rather than coming in and trying to fix a lot of the problems that are currently within this building, I looked at removing that building and just coming back in with a ready-built, very residential style building that is set up a little bit different than your normal residence, but is closer to that same size, since it's a very overturning population. That way they can come in and there's enough bedrooms here for several women with children that can stay at the same time. That allows for a bedroom with a larger bed and across the room for there to be a space for older children with bunk bed spaces. So that way, whichever way the family is more comfortable, they have space. And then the next thing I set up within here is more of an RA type situation like you have within the dorms. That way, this is its own campus. It's ran, it's secured, and everything separate from the gym because of the security aspects of needing to keep those two areas very separate. That allows you to have 1 or 2 staff members here all the time so that it's ran independently from the administrative services that are here. So coming into the actual repurposed gym facility, as you can see on these sides, I have additional lean-tos that have come into the building, and that kind of flows into what we've talked about and discussed several times within maintaining a cotton gin. And that was where my design and construction went. And so in adding additional space and additional square footage, since all of my program is also within this building, I decided to go with very traditional cotton gin construction of having additional lean-tos that come on and add to the main facility itself. So these additions that are here are the restrooms. That is where I separated those, where we have women that are on the west side, and we have men's restrooms that are on the east side. And then there's a 5th lean-to that's added to on the west end that is the main security office. It has a little bit more of as close to a 360 view of the campus as you can get. So starting with the floor plan, when you come into your Prospect Courtyard, the main entry is really set up with overhead doors because the first space is unconditioned. And so I have 2 spaces here as well as on the other side that are the same, that are for dining and overnight stay. And so that can be a transitional space. But that would come into this space. Once you come in here, that is whenever, if you're ready to start making your step into phase 2, then you can start going through the admissions process. Whenever we were there at the bridge, they discussed that there's a very clear way that everybody understands when you're ready to make your transition, we're here. And so coming in through the Prospect Courtyard, you can start into your admission space where you start getting all of your files and all of your paperwork set up where you can come into the campus as an on-campus guest. And then also on this east side is where I've set up a mental wellness center as well as a physical wellness center. And these are both accessed through a phase 1 waiting room and a phase 2 waiting room. So I decided to go with a very clear-cut demarcation between both phases. There's not an overlap unless you are escorted. Just to keep it very clear, that's how I decided to separate these two spaces. One of the other things about the wellness center when we were at the bridge is he said they have a wellness center, and even with having it, they still have up to 6 or 7 ambulance runs a day. So he suggested making it where you have the capabilities to be able to take care of minor emergencies. So those were a few of the things that I looked into, but also making sure that it had access to the exterior for ambulance and emergency services. So then after you've come into this side, we also have the dining and the night space. Then I've also included space here for phase 1 overflow, for if you have a larger amount of people who are coming in that need overnight stay, especially during the winter. And then phase 1 also has access to a barber area and laundry facilities. So this main center area here that is in the white is, the reason I left it in white is it's more administrative because it's the kitchen. And since there are, sorry, I got a little bit into that further than I expected to. The kitchen is smaller and is set up really just to serve small meals and offer catering purposes, since there's a lot of spaces around town that can come in and bring meals. And this side is all level 2. And I decided not to include any resident space in here since we have all of Tent City as well as transitional spaces. Level 2, the second floor is all office and classroom space so that it can be used and selected accordingly to how the program is going to go with workforce solutions and training and things of that nature to help move forward. One of the things I spent a lot of time with academically was some research on how to use some sustainable systems. And one of the things I really focused on was using photovoltaics. And so I went through some varying calculations on using the entire roof that's available versus using just the south-facing facades, which is very standard, is just using the south-facing facades. So one of the things that I came through in my calculations is that by using just the south-facing facades of photovoltaics, you can provide enough energy usage for the entire gen facility. But by using all of the gen roof surface, you have enough production to run the majority of the entire campus, just because it gains enough of the sun surface. Then also along with that, some of the things that we've talked about is using gray water systems and storm water systems to come in and reduce the amount of potable water that's used. And also coming into using different fixtures, making sure you're using low flow fixtures with toilets, with timed showers, timed faucets, and tying all of those in to the gray water system to recirculate back in, as well as using the storm water system. I was looking at using it primarily for just landscaping, because once you have your gray water system in place, then you can use that to recirculate itself into the building and using your storm water for your landscaping. That way you have a trickle system and you're not having to have as much or as large of a storage facility for water. And one of the other things I looked at in terms of energy were wind turbines. And one of the things that I was looking at is in terms of cost effectiveness. At the moment, to be able to balance the two, I was looking at it as these are still not quite as feasible as the photovoltaic system was. And the reason that I say that is in my slight amount of research I was able to put into it, coming in with the wind turbines, the size and the space that you would need to produce enough to be at net zero was much more than putting in the photovoltaic system over the roof. And this was a new system that I came across that was with Energy Peak. And I had not seen this system before. It actually comes in with the standing seam roof, where they come in and they lay in between the actual seams of the metal panels. And so it seemed to be much more effective than also having extra tilting panels that come up off of your roof, as it becomes incorporated within your roof system. And so this is the last thing I wanted to touch on that we've kind of talked about in several projects, was the structure. And I decided to be very similar with the way that Garrett went in keeping the exterior structure, which you can see highlighted in the renderings as a brighter red. And I also removed the exterior panels, but I also removed quite a few of the lower purlins and reinforced the top purlins around the roof area to create more of a pavilion over the building. However, I did run my walls all the way up, incorporating one roof system. So that way I'm taking advantage of my building is under a shade. And so that was the direction that I went, as well as my third story is only storage. So the hottest area of my building is just for storing extra mats, extra tents, etc.
Hello, my name is Kyle, and this is my proposal for the adaptive use project of the already existing cotton gin. To start, one of my subjects I studied before really getting into design was the urban context around the site. Right here. To start, I looked at the circulation around the site of just the streets altogether, which way is which direction each street went, if it's one-way or two-way. And I also studied where the bus routes go, like the local bus routes. Now, there actually is a sub-stop right next to the site that they will stop if there's somebody there. They won't stop if there's nobody there. And of course, I proposed maybe making the whole site a stop altogether, but as I talked to Les on First Friday, he mentioned they tried doing that and it wasn't going to work out, at least coming back. It might work going south on the Dunbar bus route. The only problem is they'd have to pick people up at the site, and then they'd be going through the entire Dunbar area before coming back up north. So it would be inconvenient. But that was one idea I had. The next idea is I studied up on all the locations that are local to the area of community, grocery, recreation, and medical facilities. Just wanted to figure out where everything was. And if you've ever been to the site before, there's really not much around. So one thing I looked into was the distance between it would make between walking and biking, like a 5-minute trip walking, a 5-minute trip biking, which is what both these circles represent. There's if you can't see it, there's like a blue circle right here. Is about in the center of it. It's going to be the site, and there's about that's about a 5-minute walk right there, which is roughly about half a mile each direction. And then biking makes all this difference right here. Now, that's going to be close to maybe 5 times more than walking. That's basing it off the average speed of walking is going to be about 3 miles per hour, and biking is going to be about 15 miles per hour. So with that, I also proposed the possibility of adding a biking system to the site altogether, maybe giving it to the residents of Phase 2, giving them something that they can be more responsible over, something that just add to the program altogether. And it would benefit them greatly. I remember Frank told us a story of one guy that was a dishwasher at a restaurant over on 50th Street, and he walked there every day just to get the money he needed to make a down payment on an apartment. If this is provided to the residents, that would cut his time in half, and it would be not as exhausting to do that on a daily basis. And moving on, now the way it affected my site was I added a few features that I thought were necessary, such as a bike rack, which is over on the west side of the project, and I provided an extra drive just in case for bus and van pickup specifically, while there's also another drive just for pickup and maybe parking with the parking lot over on the east side. West side, sorry. The east side is where the bike rack is at. Got my directions mixed up. Okay. And then moving on from there, now going to the project directly, my organization starts with the entrance going to be in the center of the building on the north side. So you'd be coming in from where the drive is for just pickup and everything. And that goes straight into a 2-story lobby that rises 2 spaces with a central staircase in the middle, and there's an elevator behind the staircase. To the east side is where the prospect area is, or the phase 1, where they will be, where they sleep at night and where they'll be eating, getting all their necessary facilities. The restrooms are right next to it, and the serving area is right below it, with the storage area where all the cots and everything can be put during the day. Just south of that, just below it, is the serving area, all connected to a kitchen for the phase 2, which below that is where the phase 2, which is this wing coming out here, where they are dining, where their dining area is. And now there doesn't really have to be a good storage area for that because their dining is always going to be up. And then the laundry facilities for phase 2 are right next to that. And further next to all of that over here in this wing is the bike repair area. So with the bike racks and my proposed bike idea, there needs to be a necessary space for any repairs that need to be made, maybe storage. Somebody can work it. It's over here. Now on the opposite side is where I put the restrooms for the bath area, the facilities for the women and children for the temporary living purposes and everything, along with a few administrative offices for them. And going to the second floor, right above that is going to be where the temporary living spaces are, with a small recreation space in the middle, just if they want to have more space to move around, while everything is on the second floor. Then going across, like I said, the main lobby is 2-story, and there are 2 paths running in between the different sides of the building on the second floor. Over here is where all the administrative offices will be, as well as some conference rooms or classrooms, if you will, if you want to do any kind of teaching of the residents or anything. Okay, and moving from there, now one of the issues we had with a adaptive use project like this is the structure of the existing building and adding new structure to it. I kept the structural grid of where my columns and beams and everything are on the same grid that was already existing to make it easier, and I created a freestanding structure in the middle, within the shell of the building, while the already existing structure is unaffected. And then from there over here, I studied for passive purposes, climate adaptive purposes. I wanted to add overhangs for sun shading for some of the smaller interior spaces like the living areas, the living units, and the offices. The overhangs are about a 50-degree angle to cover up all of the summer sun so as not to gain too much heat in the space, and to provide most of the winter sun so as to heat the spaces when necessary. Most of the winter sun. It's very hard to find the equal out to be able to get all the cold sun, all the winter sun and all the summer sun, but I provided as much as I could. Now there aren't any overhangs on the north side, mainly because no matter what I did, I couldn't get any sun over there. And then over here, I have the lobby is actually naturally daylit, so the largest space is provided with skylights. Now that could provide some heat gain, but at the same time, the lobby is not a room where it's going to be a permanent residence. It's just a transitional space, so it's not necessary to completely. Well, you see where I'm going with that, I think. It's not necessary to completely use mechanical cooling and heating to make it completely comfortable because it's only transitional space. Nobody's going to stay in there for long periods of time. Then over here, one of the last things I researched was gray water reuse. So anything since this building does have a lot of shower facilities and laundry facilities, it's a good idea to reuse the water coming from those facilities on irrigation purposes or even water closet purposes. So I would say rerouting all that water into a tank where then it can be filtered if necessary, and then it can be routed to the irrigation system and the water closet system. And looking at these renderings up here, I wanted to focus on the entrance where you see these two drives. This drive is the one for the bus and the van pickup, and this drive right here is the immediate drive for pickup and receiving for residents from just cars. On the back side over here, this is showing the way you get into the rest of the site for maybe emergency vehicles or any other vehicles that need to get into the phase 2 or 3 area, which goes and leads all the way over here to the phase 2 area and the phase 3 area right there. And then this one is looking at the wing that there's only one wing coming off that wasn't covered up by the rest of the building, the already existing building, and that's going to be the dining area and the laundry facility of the phase 2, and that's in this area right here. Now you can also see there's the water tanks, which I added for the purpose of the gray water reuse. And there's 3 water tanks. One is over on the southwest side, the southwest side where the restroom facilities for the women and children are. And one is over here next to the laundry facilities, while there's another one right next to the restroom facilities for phase 1 and phase 2. Now each one is going to be roughly 280 cubic feet, something like that, which I estimated from my resources would be enough to supply the residents with gray water for future purposes as well, for future population growth. So thinking ahead, thinking of the urban context, and that would be my presentation.
We're going to go ahead and start. My name is Yvonne Strain, and thank you all for coming today to give us input on these projects that we've been working with. Okay, so to start off, the programming and the organization, as far as spatial planning, things that we had to consider for this building were a complete challenge. We had to consider various users of the site and the building. So we had to think about the different levels of individuals that might come to this site. So we had what we called level 1 participants with the High Cotton program. And these are people that they're basically entry-level homeless individuals. They're walking in off the street and they're coming to this facility to ask for help. You also have level 2 individuals, and these are people that have been here at the High Cotton facility for some time, and they're working through the program to improve their circumstances. And the first part of the summer, we looked at what we would call level 3 or transitional housing, and that was our opportunity to propose something that would be better than a tent dwelling. So just to start off, here's kind of a general, like a site, sort of like a master plan that I was looking at. Of course, reusing the existing cotton gin to accommodate the various services that we were wanting to implement for level 1, level 2, but also for women and children. And I'll get to that in a moment. The site would also accommodate for tent dwellings and then possible blocks or areas of development for phase 3. And one thing that I was actually working on from my site is I wanted to introduce a community component to the site. I felt that, with all the effort and things that High Cotton with Link Ministries is trying to promote. I didn't want it to be a site that's ignored or perhaps thought of as just, for where homeless people go. So there, I guess kind of on the northwest corner, I accommodated space for like a community pavilion for different interaction with the community to take place. So looking at the floor plan, I pretty much had a clear separation between the level 1 and level 2 participants with the program. And I also worked in accommodating women and children for emergency shelter purposes. So one of the things that initially I started looking at, I began adding these different forms as the program was going to expand. I was adding them onto the existing cotton gin, and I quickly realized that this was not really the direction that I wanted to go as far as the architectural, appearance of the building, and as well as like this spatial and programming solution. So what I did with the building is certain facilities, I consider them more of like a satellite, approach to solving the various needs of the users. So with that, I pretty much incorporated like a freestanding, like a smaller structure for restrooms and showers. And I also thought about the location of those structures as far as adjacency to the building. You want to keep them close where they're convenient, but at the same time, I was trying to explore like taking advantage of passive strategies. And so again, in my first run at it, when I was adding these forms to the building, it was not really working with that approach. So for the first floor, I pretty much left just like a small kitchen as the core component of the first floor. But I do have a level 2 dining area. It's pretty much open. And then of course on the other side, one of the most significant forms that I added was a form for level 1 dining that would also double as their night space. So downstairs I pretty much have, like coming in from the north, you'll have like the prospect courtyard or the level 1 courtyard. I also accommodated a room, so it's sort of like a waiting room, more of like an intake situation, which is something that we saw when we visited the bridge. There's also going to be laundry facilities available, as well as guest storage for each level, but they're still separately accessed. And then upstairs, I worked on having like the women and children pretty much clustered, in one part of the building, and this was going to help address security and privacy, but also just creating kind of a community and like a feeling of safety with the people that are there. So, but then also upstairs, I have kind of on the east side of it, I have more of like offices for what we would call like the care staff. And these are people that are, helping these individuals on their road to recovery. And so a little bit about my interiors. Like this here is along the south facade, and this is kind of a space just right adjacent to the dining area. And so this is for level 2, and it's more of a kind of like a casual atmosphere. Like you don't want these people to feel, while they are under rules, you don't want them to feel just too, I guess, regulated as far as every move that they make, just doing basic things every day. And so I'm trying to create a very open atmosphere using ambient lighting and things like that. So also on the second floor, this would be like a level 2, kind of like a resource lab. So this is a place where a staff could accommodate a guest up here. And this is just a place for them to use different resources and just kind of an outreach type center. And I guess to get to the structure of the cotton gin, so I pretty much kept the existing rigid frame members, and I also kept the existing structural purlins that were in place for the roof. And so my approach for integrating a second floor is I pretty much kept in line with the structural grid, and I inset an additional a steel platform consisting of columns and beams. And then any other form that I added, I pretty much kept within that same steel construction. And just to talk a little bit about my exterior material, I looked at different materials, so looking at maybe corrugated metal again and things like that. But I wanted to take a different approach to reskinning the building. I wanted to think of it more of an opportunity to make the existing structure highlight but frame the space, but also to incorporate a material that would allow daylighting. And here's pretty much a diagram of, this is the south side here and this is the north side. And so this is kind of a diagram of the interior spaces. On the south side, there's this large volume of a patio. And so with my approach, I chose to create a second level patio just to get use of the volume with that.
What is the skin?
The skin, I looked at using a cow wall system. So I used cow wall, but I also used an insulated metal panel with it. So I wanted to look at a very kind of contrast between the major building and the satellite structures that I also had.
And what are those things that look like cell phone antennas?
This.
Yeah.
These are pretty much wind turbines.
Oh.
And so it's not something that we fully got to, I'm not going to say that we did, or that I did calculations, but I think it's a point of discussion and something that people could start looking into. So, and on mine, I chose to incorporate PV panels, but very selectively. I didn't want to just plaster the form just because we have a building with solar panels. So my approach was to design a good building.
My name is Alejandra Robles. I'm gonna talk about my design and especially 3 major points that guided my design to this facility, which were security, community, and dignity. Security is the main reason for homeless people to seek shelter. The facility shall provide security from the environmental elements and outside dangerous forces. Security is expected for all residents and should be assured. Residents of the facility should never feel threatened or at risk under any circumstances. Unexpected situations are possible and countermeasures should be implemented. These individuals are at risk by social standards, and security are an efficient way to overcome that weakness. For community, communities a sense of belonging. In order for residents to adapt to society, they need to interact. Many oppressive and digressive forces have led them to different routes, and society settled boundaries for them being homeless. These boundaries can be broken if residents have the opportunity to engage themselves cohesively back into society. Residents are expected to show their qualities and promote their potential for better overall well-being. When it comes to dignity, as it pertains to human worth, this is the final and most important need for homeless, and shall be granted all those who are actively engaged to themselves in this community. All people belonging to the safe community shall retain their dignity and shall feel a sense of mutual connectivity. For security, I have the main gate, which as how we saw at Dallas, the trip that we went, at the bridge, how when people enter for the first time, they have gates that they have to go through, and they go to like inspection. That's the main gate, and also I have the entrance lobby, which is right here. There's going to be a secretary, a staff person. That's another point of security. And the second floor that is designed for women and children also has security, and also it has a staff room. And for dignity, well, I need to provide the needs that the people have, and the personal space, and also privacy. For community, Shane, one of the students here, found a diagram of how the cotton gin was, and it's right there. And I made a 3D model to see how it was maybe in that picture. And this diagram helped me develop my site plan. I laid the diagram on top of the existing site and the existing buildings. And from there, I used the traces of that to create the site. And also for additional development, it will be on that corner, what used to be the cotton house later on. It could be used as whatever they need. It could be also a clinic or more space for level 1 and 3. 2 and 3. Okay, the floor plan was designed in phases. The first floor, everything you see in orange, it's for level 1. The people are just gonna be coming in maybe for a night or a day, or maybe a week. They'll come to the lobby, and this area, it's the dining and sleeping area. They also have a courtyard, and a laundry and restrooms. At night, this area will be closed, but they have a restroom in that area. For the level 2 and 3, it's gonna be all that gray area. One thing that I used to divide them and also to have in common was the kitchen. They have the serving area for level 1, and also for level 2 and 3, and that was what divided my spaces, my areas. The white are only for staff, and okay, that's a kitchen and serving, which is shown in this picture. They can come through here, get their food, and they also have their tray return. I also provided the laundry, an office, study room, mail, telephones, and library for them for level 2 and 3, and also for women and children. I have men's locker rooms, men's restroom, and men's shower barbershop, and outdoor storage. Also, this area, it has a door to exterior, so people from the tents and phase 3 can come through here at night, and this whole area will be closed. For the second floor, that is the women's and children's area, I have the lobby, a clinic, 2 patient rooms, staff room. I also provide a handicap bedroom just in case there's a large family that's coming, and by the time, the restrooms are over here. I have the women's kitchen, children's area. They have glass walls for the moms to keep an eye on the kids if they have to be cooking. The women's and children's bedrooms are along this side. I provided a storage which only opens from the outside of the hallway, so they can bring their belongings here. They don't have to take them inside into their bedroom. They just can come, and for as long as they're going to be there, they can keep them in that area. Also provide a closet for them, play area, and women's restroom, showers, study room, and the outdoor area. When it comes to the structure, I use the same steel frame that the existing building has. If purlins are damaged, they need to be repaired. And the corrugated metal, I saw it's damaged, so which also needs to be replaced. That metal, I am thinking of using it for the fence of this property. It has to be sanded and finished, but it will serve as the boundary. So I will be using that metal as well. And I added 3 more bays. I extended the building, and this side will be this area. The orange is the proposed, the white is the existing of the building. No additional weight or load should be added to the structure. That's why I needed, in order to create the second floor, I needed another platform that will hold itself in place without adding any loads to the beams, steel beams. Okay, let me show you this real quick. Okay, and I also made a palette of what I wanted to use for this facility. This area, these tiles are for this is the flooring for the kitchen and also for the clinic. I wanted to use an accent tile as well. This will be the color of the walls, the paint. This will be the countertops. For women and children's area, I wanted to use something that was like warm colors that will remind you or help you feel you're at home. So I use this is my flooring, and this is an accent tile. This will be the colors of the walls. And for the glass, I used an opaque glass, something that gives privacy. And this also will be for the counters. And for the children's area, I decided to use these colors, and it's shown in this area. This will be the glass panels, the green. For the kids, I don't want them to be like in a dark place. I want them to be like colorful. It doesn't really matter what their problems are and anything. I want them to feel comfortable in a space like this. The top, they enter from the same spot where you have the entrance right now. I have along the north side, I have the kennels for the dogs, also providing a sense of security. And I provided parking space along this side and also along the building for handicapped people. And well, the rest also I provided like a community shaded area in the north side using the process diagram. It's composed of that radiant design from the burr burner. And right now I have them like as pipes that connect and make a shaded area that I'll be want to use like benches under there. So and also provided some trees. That design. That's about it.
Hello, my name is Vidal Zuniga. So starting with my project, I really took on this project as wanting to really keep the structural integrity and the whole entire integrity and character of the building, the cotton gin itself. When we did go to the site, I did see that there were lots of repairs that needed to be on the actual building. However, what I decided to do was leave the existing structure, remove the purlins, so that the main structure would be left. But however, I wanted to keep the actual original corrugated metal that was on the building, just kind of repurpose it a little bit. And what I decided to do with that was, that kind of leads me into my design scheme. There are pieces of the corrugated metal that would be repurposed and left on the building, but then I would take those pieces, some pieces off, and where those pieces were taken off, they would actually be pulled out and become office spaces or extra spaces that I needed to be put into more program into the building. So going through that, let's go through the site plan. Starting with the site, the building, however, I've decided to create a access road, service road that's going to go through the entire site, through the middle of it. That way, that if there is an emergency, or what I was also looking at was, we talked to, I believe it was Les and also Frank as well, that there may be a catered kind of food sometimes come in to be brought into the building. It also allows them to bring in food for that. It also gives another exit so that there's not just one entry or one exit to the site, so that access is a little bit easier. Going into the building, there's two entrances that I've created. One will be for the women, and the other side would be for level 2, which would be the people that are already living there in Tent City. On the women's side, I've created a few areas that are living that are on the first floor, but then there's also a second floor that becomes fully just for women and children on the second floor. There will be no access for anyone else besides women and children on the second floor. Going on through that, when you get up to the second floor, there's a large common area that I've left open in the middle of the room for the children to play inside. So if it's cold during the winter time, they can actually still have somewhere to play. And then there's also a laundry facility located on the second floor that allows them to do laundry separate from anyone that's in level 2 or 3 that's in Tent City. They will have their own separate laundry facilities. There's also a few offices that I've placed to give more security. That way there's not just people up in the second floor, just hanging around up there, that there will be some kind of regulation that's going on throughout the building. It also would hold any kind of equipment like balls or things like that for the children to play with as well. And back to the first floor, going into the level 2 area, there is on the south side, there is a dog park, and the dog kennels are located there. So anyone who do have pets will be able to store them whenever they need to. And then when you go inside, there are restrooms inside that level 1 will have restricted access to, because it will be on a time basis. They will be allowed to use it, but it's just on certain times, so that more security regulations can be implemented for that. There are a few living areas that I've actually placed inside for level 2, just in case if something were to happen, kind of like with the windstorm that happened last month. There's a place that some people can be stored inside, and then there's also a larger area that extra tents or cots could be put inside. In the very center of the first floor, there is a kitchen area, and in the kitchen area, it will be able to serve anyone from level 2, also for the women and children, with a wall that divides them so that they are secure, that no one is able to bother them. And then there's also on the north side an area for level 1 to be able to eat, which are the people that are just incoming for like a night or two, to come in to eat on the site. And the eating area also will double as a sleeping area for them. Just move the tables and things back into a storage area that I've left here. Let's see. Moving, also with this project, I've also looked into a hybrid power system, and the hybrid power system would be for photovoltaic panels as well as wind turbines to help power the building. It wouldn't completely power it, but it would help greatly reduce the cost of that building. And there's also, I've proposed for my water retaining system, permeable pavers. And what those do is if you were to walk across the ground, it would look like there's blocks of cement or concrete along the ground that actually have specific little slits in between them that allow the water to penetrate it, and it would be able to be collected into cisterns and then either used as irrigation, used for irrigation, or like low flow toilets and things like that, gray water things. Let's see. On the outside of the site, along the north side, there would be 2 courtyards, which or 2 sides of a courtyard. That would be where the level 1 entry people come in. So on the top, the level 1 entry is come in, and then along the northeast side, that's where everyone else comes in. That's already being used already. That gate still remains there. But the courtyard will allow level 1 and level 2 access. Level 1 will have some restrictions. That way it's just more regulated for them. And then also I've proposed a small area that's built off to the side that's enclosed where this wall is. It's about an 8-foot high wall that what I was kind of thinking of it as, I've left it kind of plain right here, but I was thinking that maybe artists, someone that can come and just kind of give more kind of life to that wall, so it's kind of just becomes something that's identifiable for like the city of Lubbock. So maybe someone just comes and does a mural, or the children actually are able to put their own thoughts and things into this, and it just becomes kind of more of a harmonious kind of community kind of thing. Let's see. And also throughout the site, that access road, I've also I've made it to where it actually goes around the entire site so that the entire site is able to have access just in case of emergency, so that EMS can actually make it around anywhere that they needed to go, in which I have actually kept level 2, which are the tents located on the south, to the southwest. And then on the level 3 tenants, they would be here on the southeast side. And the garden space I saw there, I've extended it a little more so that people can have more of an area to kind of communicate who are already living there, just to kind of help bring more of the community feeling to that site. The yellow is actually just showing where windows are, so that where the sun is going to penetrate that building. Along the north and south facades, there is a curtain wall that allows the sunlight to come in. And so on the second floor, where the women and children's common area would be, there's light to be able to penetrate both sides, and that it's lit up. However, it would be a frosted glass on pretty much about 10 feet high of glass on that, so that they're not completely seen, especially on the north side, because the north side's left completely open, that toward that courtyard where this is right here, so that people can't see them, just so as another level of security for them, but they're still able to get some kind of daylighting into the building.
describe the ground around the exterior, those slats of the exterior?
This right here?
Yeah.
That is actually the part of the building where I was saying the original corrugated metal facade would be pulled off. And what it also did along this edge, along the west and north side, it created a cover, not a completely covered, but a walkable area that was just kind of pulled off, so that it still kind of creates something new, but still ties back to the original cotton gin that was there.
And what holds all that?
There's new structure that's put in. All of it is blue. Anything that's newly built, I've painted it blue, so that it would that you would recognize that it was a new part of the building. So just kind of something that was demarcating something new, but still able to tie back to the original cotton gin.
Hello everyone, my name is Harris Briggs. I will be your next victim. To keep going on from the discussion you guys just had, I was actually about to discuss my thoughts on it personally. I believe there is a historical cultural importance to this building because cotton was the infrastructure of the past and the development of Lubbock as a whole. And I see that as a cultural importance to the city itself. This gin, it predates actually the forms of the ones that you see that are the iconic ones south of the site, more towards 19th. So I see that as it's one of the few standing still that predate that form of gin.
Okay, those aren't gins.
Yeah, well, you can ask me questions after the presentation. It is important to keep its form and historical integrity somewhat in this project. That's what I decided myself when I started making up my parameters and my guidelines. According to theorists such as Kenneth Frampton, structures and sites like this really help create a sense of place in the architecture as an experience unique to itself that otherwise you wouldn't be able to achieve. Like this beautiful, I mean, it's not beautiful, but you wouldn't be able to get an otherwise building that has the etchings and the tracings on it that tells a story in itself of what's happened in Lubbock's past. So, so with the materials and the geography and the cultural significance, I decided that this skin, at least, and as an exercise, more of like a challenge, like an academic challenge, was to keep it as intact as possible. So on the very first site visit, you can see this inspiration diagram. I really found like the idea of like these holes and these little remnants of what could have been there. Like I didn't have time to do the research itself. Oh, how does a cotton gin operate? But I found that part to be really interesting. So I came up with the question, how do I preserve this sense of place and these tracings, or the idea of them, and then how can these ideas be used to enhance the whole purpose of the space to the guests that are for the whole use of the repurposement. So with that in mind, my very first initial idea was this using light and like a warm sense of inviting into the gin for these people as like a sense of hope. So I'll go ahead and start with my floor plans over here. The kitchen itself, after our trip to the bridge, I learned that the serving window is actually not very big, yet they serve a very high volume of guests. So the idea was to bring in pre-made meals, and I think there was something like 4 or more different kitchens that serve food, and so they can bring them in, and there's a fridge and there's some equipment there for preparation purposes. But I had the idea of having like a dual service kitchen. So you can have like this phase 1 Prospect Courtyard up here, have them still separated and not endangering the phase 2 dining experience or dining guests, so it can serve both sides. And the phase 2 dining room would have a more uplifting experience within itself as like a sense of progression. And then phase 3, you get your own, as we did in summer 1. So we have this, you would come in off the road, and you would have this dual kitchen with the loading dock. And over here, located over here, is just this phase 2 dining area with serving line, condiment area, restrooms. Over here, back here would be phase 1. And there's a little awning. So I use the idea of taking the skin and like etching it and tracing it, and I move it up to create like a kind of an awning for these people as like a transitional architectural threshold. And so they can come into the phase one people, they can come in off the street, and then when they need it's really a simple process, and I think that's important to keep it simple for them because they're busy, like recovering, and the least complicated it can be, the more helpful it will be in the recovery process. So over there is the phase one, and then over here, back here is offices, and if there needs to be a clinic space, I'm not sure, but there's possibilities for that. So basically blue is guest space, and then red from far away is admin and staff and employees. And then on the second floor, you come up, and over here would be the private guest rooms for like women and children, or man and his children, with restrooms, laundry, and then another admin space right there. So this would be the open volume space right here, as you can see right here. Parking wise, right here would be for these level 2 guests / employees and staff. And then back here, I noticed this notch back here in the site plan. That could be for visitors, so they would walk in over here. So security was also a very important thing to consider from our visit to the bridge. They had multiple security checkpoints, always checking them, searching them, making sure everything's safe because safety is an important thing to feel also when you're recovering. So I have multiple checkpoints, and these are just massings to show the idea of a security checkpoint. I didn't really go in and design a security checkpoint. So over here, the fence, there would be a spot in the fence to come in if you're phase one, and you'd be checked right here. And then phase 2, you could come in through here or this way, either way. Staff would be checked right here to make sure you have like a staff, you have a key card or something like that. And then most visitors and other people would come in through this way. So this would be your main security building. And then over here could be storage where the existing building is right now. Also, I added a new material into the material palette, which would be wood. So that's not really found in the gym right now, but it adds another sense of warmth, a sense of invitation. It's less harsh than everything else that's industrial and cold. So it's all adding up to like this sense of comfort and inviting space for recovery. So right here is an image of the phase 2 dining that you would experience, which has this large double volume skylight. And then you see this wood. In the plan, architecturally it actually comes out as a future fire escape. And it's also, as you approach in through the main entrance, you don't see the service door. So it's kind of there to kind of not only provide a fire escape, but to block the view. So you don't see, if you know the door's there, and if you work for the staff, which that's the staff entrance, that's where you would enter. But if you're just a normal guest, you wouldn't really see that right away. So you would come over through, you see like this inviting glass in the warmth at night, and you would come in that way. So that's what the wood does, and then it penetrates all the way through over into the what do you call it? The lobby, the lobby space right here. So to continue on with that idea, I had the idea of using like these industrial lights that also provide security at night. So I think it would be really sketchy to be walking around this building with people you haven't really met quite yet, or you won't know for very long. So if you illuminate this building in a sense that's kind of similar to the old way, it was just an inspiration to light up the building and use the industrial qualities to accomplish that. So on the back side, you would have them also, and here's the awning. And then the guest spaces have a north skylight on the north side for the north ambient light. At the bridge, they had, that's really what they talked about. They said light was very important for the guests. So I understood that having the southwest glazing and the skylight is pretty much a big no-no. And so instead of completely shutting it down, I embraced the architectural idea, and so I tried to figure out how could I make this work, rather, instead of being negative and shutting it down. So I investigated different types of glazing you can use. There's a double OE, which has an R value of 7. There's a 7 or upwards. There's some vacuum insulated glass. You know, it depends on how much you want to spend, but as an academic project, I felt it was important to investigate that what different types of material you could use in a sense like this to create this architectural experience. And even at the end of the day, if it ended up costing more because of maybe some more heat gain, as a designer, it was my decision because I believe the experience kind of trumps than maybe saving a little bit of money through different or lower cost glazing or more shading. So that was my decision as a designer. And then over here towards the admin and on both floors, you have these windows here as well, and they have shading devices for the summer sun. And that's a wrap. So.
Go ahead and address the west and south corner.
Okay. So this corner right here, this is your main entry, which the entry would be right here, unless you're just entering straight into the dining room, which would be right here for the phase 2. This right here is the idea of a shading device. So I'm not saying completely no to like these ideas, but the material itself can be a high quality to counteract the negative aspects of the design. But this shading overhang could be maybe perhaps bigger to allow for more concepts of shading in the summer. So I'm not completely shutting that out. I'm exploring. I'm staying positive about this idea. So if there was anything else I missed.
Before and after shot.
Yeah, before and after. This is fun. Here's from Prospect 1 Courtyard where I proposed. And so you're looking at it, and okay, and you start to see like these little things. And if I had time, I would actually go back and like model that. And like, how cool would that be? Like, this is the only place you can experience like these little patches where things used to be. And I thought that was really fascinating. But if I could, I would go back and do that. But so after, then you see it's a transformation. Here you can see the different fire escape, and it almost looks like it punches through and carries over here. So it ties it all together. I have a guttering system that comes in down into these rain tanks for collection. So if I were to keep going with this project, I think I'd be pretty, I had fun this 4 weeks, so.
My name is Shane, and I'm assuming Professor Loudon lets me, this is my final studio presentation in an academic setting, so I'm excited about that. One of the things that I was kind of interested in when we visited Dallas at the bridge was the fact that though they do have a shelter component at the bridge, they don't consider themselves a shelter. They consider themselves a homeless recovery center. Now, part of that, I have a place for people to sleep and eat. So it is a shelter, but that's not really their focus. Their focus is on getting people back into a home. And from my conversations with Les and Frank, that's really the goal here, is not to put the Band-Aid on homelessness by giving them a place to sleep, but try to get them back into being productive members of the society. And I started thinking about, well, this used to be a gin, or it housed gin machinery inside. And what did gin do? It processed at the risk of sounding kind of crass toward homeless, they took a raw material and refined it to the point that it could be used and useful to society. So I was thinking of this as a gin for people. It's getting them kind of trying to get them, maybe if whatever their hang up is, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or just bad luck, or making bad decisions in the past, clearing that thing out, clearing those things out, getting them back to being productive, and getting them back into a home. So this kind of became a gin for people. Now I'll start by going through the site plan. I kind of debated back and forth on where I really wanted the main entry point of this to be. And I decided to kind of keep it close to where it was, up there in the northwest corner. And the reason for that is I believe that's the closest place where a bus route is. So having access to the public transportation was kind of important for me. And I really thought it was important to have one main entry, no matter who's coming in, whether it be the staff, volunteers, or the guests. With one exception, the kitchen delivery, which I'll get to that here in just a minute. Security at this point will direct people to the appropriate place. If they're in a car, there's a little booth here, just like the ones we see on campus, who will give them the the go-ahead to go park, tell them which parking lot to go to, and things like that. And if they're walk-in, they go into a shaded kind of a prospect court, which is basically a waiting area that's secured from the rest of the facility, but it's a place where they can come in. Now, I don't know if this facility would take it to the extent that they do in Dallas, where they wand every single person that comes into the building. But it would be an opportunity to kind of, for someone, a security officer or security team member, to make sure that we're keeping things clean inside, clean and safe. Now, as far as directing the traffic, any step one, and I decided to use the term step because we determined that phase could be used architecturally, level could be used architecturally, step, yeah, it could be a step up, up to a patio or something like that. But I felt that was maybe as far as my approach, the best term for this. So step one, the new people, the people that are just needing a place to stay, they don't necessarily want to go stay in a tent, or the people that have been in a tent and they've been bad and they're being sent back to step one, which I think, Frank, you mentioned is a possibility. So step one, they'll be directed along this alley into a courtyard, which the courtyard is right here. So this is an outdoor space where they can just spend their time when they're here. And it has direct access into a cafeteria, which I'll go into here in a minute. Step two, they'll be directed to go down across the campus into the tent city, or if they need to come into the building, they can walk around this way. Step three, those are the people that have the little private houses that are getting ready to get back out into the real world. They can come down into here, and this was our first summer session project. And they also have parking there. So the parking is employee parking on the north side where the main employee entrance is, guest parking over here, and then step one guest parking. A couple of other features, the dog park, keeping the dog park over here on the corner. And the reason for that is I wanted to keep it away from where most of the guests might be sleeping. And keep it kind of out on the perimeter of the facility, because I know I have a neighbor who doesn't control their dog's barking, and I've had to go outside and yell a couple of times at them. So I know how distracting that can be. Another thing was the community garden, which would be close to the tent city area, just south of step three housing. And I kind of thought of an interesting idea of something to do with this existing building. If we could, if they had enough produce that they were making, that they could have a little farmer's market or something, where this would be a public kind of access point, where they could sell whatever they grow that they can't consume themselves. Going down into the floor plans, the first floor is where most of this stuff happens. There's a support area. Now this is kind of where the gym analogy happens. This is where the support is provided. It could be caseworkers, where they could meet with people to kind of get them on the path. There are also two fairly large classrooms, meeting rooms. So it could be group meetings, or say somebody comes in to volunteer to teach something, or teach a skill, or teach whatever it might be, a vocational class could go on there. The gatekeeper is for the building itself is the receptionist in the main lobby. That person is one who also determines who has access to the elevators and stairs, that's important, and I'll mention that here in just a moment. Attached to the main lobby is a phone bank. That was another thing that I liked about the bridge at Dallas is the guests have access to phones, and they even have a system set up where they provide a phone number where if they're doing job hunts, then they'll be able to contact them, and also mail addresses and things like that too. So, giving them a way to find those jobs. The other major part is where the guests will be eating. There are 2 dining halls. One that faces Tent City obviously would be for the step 2. The one that faces toward the step 1 courtyard is for step 1. And I was trying to think about the balance of how many would be in this step or the other. So I kind of went with an even balance, but with some flexibility. The main wall that divides this place is a movable wall, so it can be flexible. It can open up if you have more of this group than that group. The food is served from a kind of a 2-sided buffet line. Basically, you have 2 people serving, one on each side. Tray returns go back here to the dishwashing, and here's the kitchen. That's where it all goes back out. I wanted a big enough kitchen where things could be prepared, cooked, but not so big that it would be like a big commercial kitchen. It's more of a prep kitchen, but it can be used to cook meals. A couple of other main things on the ground floor would be the hygiene areas. So for step 2, women's and men's showers and toilets, as well as a little small laundry facility, and then kind of a similar one up here on the north side. Now, going upstairs, I mentioned that the reception here is the gatekeeper. They determine who has access to this elevator, and the reason for that is because that's where the women and children will be. So we wanted to make sure that their potential conflicts or potential contact with the main population was limited or at least controlled. It was supervised. Upstairs in the Women and Children's Lounge, there are 10 rooms, 10 private rooms, a small lounge where meals could be served there, a small laundry facility, toilets and showers, and a counseling room for a caseworker dedicated to the people who would be staying here. Do I need to wrap it up already? Okay. And then the rest would be the offices. As far as the structure, essentially stripped the building down to its skeleton and built the building within it. And we've mentioned that this building was obviously engineered to hold up the roof and the walls that are on it right now, and not much more. So the building within a building is what I went with, and then reskinning the roof and the strategically placing new walls on the west and east side. The benefits of this double roof is, number one, it works almost like a really well ventilated attic. So the heat that rises up through the building can be flushed out through the prevailing winds through this way. I apologize for the size of that little diagram, but it also shades. So here's a couple of shading diagrams that I have, and I was looking at mid-afternoon when it tends to be really nice and hot. Summer solstice, the whole south facade is shaded. During the equinox, a little bit of sunlight's let in, and during the winter solstice, it gets a pretty nice heavy dose of sunlight when you would want it. It's also a large catchment for rainwater, which would be for irrigation purposes and perhaps for flushing toilets and things like that. I also was looking at gray water as a way to flush toilets, perhaps do irrigation for non-food irrigation like grass and trees and things like that. And last thing, materials. I went with the industrial look with the standing seam. On the west facade with a perforated corrugated metal. which is like this. It looks like a regular corrugated metal, but it is perforated. So it allows a little light to get through. It shades pretty well, and it also allows maybe some ventilation on that west side. Let some air out, and it's also like a breezeway too. So hopefully that the prevailing winds will keep that flushed out of hot air. I also went with the cowl wall, and I did a little research, and I found out that their 4-inch panels can get up to R13, which is kind of the standard in a 2x4 wall with bad insulation. The rest, which is not glazed or with the cowl wall, I've always been kind of fascinated with Nichiha. They're a company that makes fiber cement panels. Very nice, sleek. I believe they're fairly easy to install as well. And then the last material that I used would be for the core. And you can see a little bit of it here. The core, and for the any of the extensions on the east side of the building, use CMU for that.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Powell, and it's my last studio. Also, I'm graduating, so kind of bittersweet to be the last person to present. I'm kind of going to guide you through my process of high cotton, my proposal. One of the main purposes of this idea was to create a facility that not only provided shelter and housing, but also a way of providing nutrition, hygiene, and possibly new opportunities for them to grow as a person. So I'm kind of going to start off at the site. When visiting the bridge in Dallas, I was really impressed as far as their security checkpoints. That was the main focus, was security. And so in my site plan, you can see here, I developed 3 separate checkpoints, one for kind of each phase as well. The main phase 1 checkpoint is up here at the north. This is kind of where the phase 1 courtyard is. And then phase 2 and up have their own separate checkpoint as well if they're coming off from the bus station. So they'll enter through here, get checked, get patted down, scanned, and make their way across into phase 3 or phase 2. And also, I noticed a lot of them have their own vehicles. So I provided parking for those who do have vehicles where they can kind of pull in, and rather than having to park on the side of the street or someplace else, they have their own little parking area, as well as a security entrance to come through, and they'll come out the same way. I also provide, and then in my program as well, we'll go through that. I really wanted to, I was talking to David Driscoll about this too, and he really emphasized that phase 1 really needed to kind of be separated from everyone else. Not really isolated, but kind of like contained in a certain part of the site. So I wanted to create an area just for them, and in that way, because a lot of these people, they're still kind of struggling through their life as far as being alcoholics, drug addicts. So you don't really want them to be influenced or influencing the other phases. So I used the kitchen space as a barrier between phase 1 and phase 2 and up. So in the kitchen space, there's 2 separate serving areas. So in phase 1, they have their own living and dining space up in here, and then they have their own service tray or food serving area, and they also have their own laundry and storage as well. And then that kitchen space separates phase 1 from the other phase areas. I also focused on providing a service entrance for emergency vehicles, also for catering vehicles. So I used the far east part of the building for emergency drop-off or emergency pickup, or catering, dining drop-off as well, and they can exit out. In the main level, here in this area on this side of the building is all admin and also used for medical facilities as well. There's kind of a common lobby space, which is used as more of a transition space for phase one can go from this area into this part of the building. You know, if they need medical treatment or counseling, this space is kind of used to kind of transport them through the building, rather than kind of having them go outside or through the phase two areas. The green in the main level is for dining and a gathering space for they can have like TVs and books to read. And then they both have 2 fire exits and stairwells and an elevator shaft, which will go up to the second level or the second level. And now the second level I call the resident level. That's kind of, I kind of termed it as that. And the resident level, there's a space for single women and children. And they have kind of a little more of a smaller unit. And then on the north part of the building is more for families, women, children, and husbands, wives. Single men are not allowed to go at all up to no matter what phase they're in, single men are not allowed to go up to that second level. If there's a couple, they will be separated. Men will stay on the bottom level, women can go up to the very top. That's one thing that they did at the bridge, was that even if you're married for 20 years or something like that, you must be separated from levels. So I focused on that also. They also have a library, computer area, a classroom where they can, kind of sit and be taught certain things if they want to go back to school or whatever they can do. That's their common area. They have like a lounge as well, TVs, books, and then future expansion is back in here. As far as the structure is, I kept the existing structure, the same shape of it, and added a secondary steel structure for my second level. My material that I used for the exterior is just wood lap siding all around the building. I was kind of going for a very residential lodge looking building, kind of a place where it's kind of like home in a way, kind of welcoming, kind of bringing you in a little bit. I added also a barbecue pit. I know that Les mentioned about how a lot of them bring their own food in, bring their own steaks or hamburgers, and then they'll cook their own food and they'll kind of provide if they want to or share their food to everyone else. So I provided a courtyard or a little barbecue area for them. I really want to also just focus on the whole entire master plan of the site, really have it where they kind of want to gather, because at the bridge, a lot of them were outside. A lot of them were gathered around, sitting around, smoking or whatever they were doing, but a lot of them were just outside. So I really wanted to create an area where they would want to be outside. My focus also on as far as water containment and energy efficient use, the use of gray water and an underground water catchment system, used from the gutters, rainwater come down through the gutters and be stored underground and then redirected out into irrigation or other plant life. Let's see, in this main dining area, which is right up in here, this will provide for dining also, but there are operable windows to allow ventilation in during the warm season. There's also movable shading devices for when there's during the hot times they can maneuver the shading devices. I do have a basketball court. There is one there now, but there's no goals. So I kind of wanted to keep that, so I added a basketball court as well. So there is an upper kind of a catwalk where you can walk across from the resident living into more of a social gathering space. And that kind of looks over the dining area. You can kind of see right here and up in here. The second level up here? No, I mentioned before that for families who, husband and wife that have children, they are allowed to go up here also. And they have more of a larger unit to share. But if you're a single male, you're not allowed to go up in this area at all.
So the library and all of
The
those
libra-
things are not accepted?
No, to phase one at least. Right. So if phase, I guess I guess phase one would have both women and men in phase one as well. Because at the bridge they have their phase one at the bridge was where they have a big open space and it's taped out where only women can be and where men can be. And there's a security guy that kind of watches 24 hours or overnight at least, kind of watches everything. So that's kind of what this space will be. There are overhead doors, and also a little, during the winter time they close the overhead doors. There's another access door right here. Let's see.
Could you talk about your
The shading, yeah. Nothing too that I liked also about the bridge is that going from one space to another space, they had a really cool shading walkway, kind of guiding you to the next part of the building. So I kind of wanted to have a sidewalk that was kind of covered that kind of like led you into the building. So I thought it would come in a nice little shading.
So that's if you're walking in on the west side?
Yes, if you're walking in from I think Avenue A and then Ash Avenue, I think there's a bus stop here, correct? And so this is for phase 2 and up. So they'll come in, get pat down, checked in, and then they can enter through the building, or they can go to wherever their phase is, the tent city or phase 3.